Hey everyone, welcome back to another driving review video here on the channel. Today you join me in the 2025 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro, which is an extremely exciting and arguably badass mid-size off-road truck. So as usual, we're going to start out with my acceleration, sport mode, full throttle. Interesting. Truck did something interesting there. It took a little bit of time to transition and obviously give me the full power from this hybrid powertrain. So under the hood of this vehicle, you're going to find the 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder hybrid paired to a single electric motor, 8-speed torque converted automatic transmission, putting out 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. Now, I'm not sure that acceleration was honestly representative of how decently quick this truck is, but this is the exact same powertrain that was found under the hood of the 4Runner TRD Pro that I had just about 6 weeks ago here on the channel in the exact same exterior color. And it's been a fantastic opportunity to really get to experience the Tacoma TRD Pro and the 4Runner TRD Pro back to back in a relatively short amount of time. And I do like this Tacoma with the hybrid in this trim level, in this configuration, much better than that of the TRD Off-Road that I tested about this time last year on the channel, and I'll explain why throughout this video. Obviously, I didn't have the opportunity to take this truck on an off-road course or any sort of off-road driving this week like I did with the 4Runner at the 2025 Mama Spring Rally, but given these two share most of the same componentry underneath the skin with the Fox adjustable dampers with 3 different position dampening settings, you have skid plates, you got the 2-speed transfer case, MTS, crawl control. All of that is going to be pretty much identical between the two, just a slightly different wheelbase and a slightly different, vehicle configuration in terms of a mid-size truck versus a mid-size SUV. So I really have no doubt in my mind that this is a really capable off-road mid-size truck, but unfortunately it does come at a pretty hefty price tag of $66,000 as equipped, as tested. The only real option that this one has is the spray-in bed liner, which really should be standard at this tier and threshold of vehicle. Now, as usual, starting out with visibility behind the wheel, this is one of the negative attributes of the Tacoma in the TRD Pro, and obviously the Trail Hunter as well, given a lot of the body structure and body panels are going to be the same. You do get the TRD specific bulged front hood, which with the seat in its lowest seating position, you do see quite prominently in the middle of the hood as well as towards the fenders, which makes forward visibility a little bit more of looking over the hood rather than looking through the hood, if you will, figuratively speaking, because it just is so prominent. Now, the mirrors are going to be pretty much identical to that of the 4Runner, so you have nice large side mirrors, which makes rearward visibility very easy with standard blind spot detection. Looking over your shoulder, you have pretty much the same B-pillar with the grab handle, so visibility really isn't all that bad off the sides of the truck. And then, of course, looking out back, you do have the digital camera mirror in this particular one, so it does offer limitless rearward visibility given it is digital in nature. But if you flip it down, look at it through a traditional auto dimming mirror, it's really not that bad. The headrests do kind of get in the way on the outside peripherals, but I actually prefer using the digital camera mirror given its relatively wide angle and it is very adjustable, unlike some other manufacturers which don't let you adjust the digital view quite as much as Toyota and Lexus products. Now, in terms of ride quality, the Fox suspension underneath both the 4Runner and the Tacoma is actually pretty darn good, and I like the fact that it is adjustable. It's just a little bit of a bummer that it's not an electronically adjustable system. You actually have to crawl underneath the truck and turn a very chunky knob, which has 3 distinct positions. They're labeled extremely well, and it's basically from softest to firmest. I have actually chose to drive this week with the truck in its softest setting, and it did show up in my driveway with just over 500 miles in the middle setting, which leads me to believe that is probably what Toyota sets this truck to from the factory. But with the suspension set in its softest setting, it's actually a pretty good combination, which doesn't compromise too much on handling. But obviously, this truck being having the 33-inch all-terrain tires, the softer suspension, the higher ride quality, all of that, handling is not a priority. So in terms of ride quality, it's actually very well controlled, very well damped, and I think as an everyday daily driver over potholes, imperfections in the road, it actually handles it quite well. Now, obviously, we'll be coming up to my bumpy section of road here. Combined with the seat comfort inside of this truck, I think that is really what I've liked about it. So if you're unfamiliar with the TRD Pro Tacoma, you might not know that it comes with a very unique seat, which is called the ISODynamic seat. Essentially, this is a air over oil, I believe, dampening system, which actually has suspension to the seat, both in the X and Y axis, which means both vertically and horizontally, the seat can dampen movements and has adjustments on the back of the seat to give you just a little bit more either refinement or control over really harsher bumps. That's really where it shines. But there are adjustments to firm it up and soften it up, both using the air gauge and the adjustment knobs on the back, depending if you're on or off road. So that is one of the most unique and coolest features of this truck. However, it does impact not only rear seat legroom, but also ingress and egress just a little bit. Now, going back to my bumpy section of road here, you can see we're taking these moderate bumps pretty well. You do move around. You can actually feel the seat doing just a little bit of work to help isolate you a little bit from those harsh movements, and it's mainly to control your head movement. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, I do have spinal fusion, which makes headrest an issue in some products that I test on the channel. I'm happy to say that this seat has a fixed type bucket headrest, which means the headrest is actually not an issue whatsoever. And once inside, after kind of maneuvering yourself to get in the seat, it's actually very comfortable for me and retains a lot of the exact power adjustments that one would expect. Now, going back to some of the negatives about these seats is they are more of a bucket style seat. Now, that's both a good and bad thing because ingress and egress is pretty tight, and you do have to kind of duck your head, really kind of get the motion down to jump inside the truck, if you will. It's not nearly as easy as that of the 4Runner, for example. And also it impacts rear seat legroom to the point where the back seats in this truck are almost unusable despite it being a 4-door vehicle. I've had passengers back there this week. It's very tight. It's doable in a pinch, but it's not something that you probably want to deal with on a daily basis. So if you have kids or need the rear seats for occupants, just keep that in mind if you're choosing the TRD Pro, as these seats do come standard. I don't believe there's any way to actually remove them from a TRD Pro if you don't want them at all. Now, you can actually see we were actually in all electric mode, cruising at about 30 miles an hour there while I was explaining the whole seat situation, but the engine kicked back on. It's actually a very smooth transition, and you do audibly hear it from both the TRD intake and the exhaust out the back of the truck. So I really like the grumble you get behind the wheel. It's one of the better sounding 4-cylinders that I've tested. Now, moving on to some of the rest of the interior. This obviously has the larger 14-inch infotainment system, wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, the latest Toyota software and hardware behind the scenes. Heated and ventilated front seats are found on these ISODynamic seats with 4-way power lumbar. The heated and ventilated seats work great. You get heated steering wheel. You have the 12.3-inch fully digital cluster with some of the off-road gauges and, you know, obviously 2-speed transfer case, some of your crawl control all located up there. This truck does have some unique off-road 360 camera views, which can be located on the infotainment system. And the interior of this truck is much more truck-like than that of some of the other mid-size competition from the Chevy Colorado, GMC Canyon, or even the Ford Ranger for that matter. And I think that's, again, both a positive and a negative. I like the fact that it feels like a truck. It matches the design language and the feel you get from the rugged nature of the Tacoma, specifically with the TRD Pro and some of the more off-road oriented trims. But some people might not like that quite as much as some of those other competitors that I mentioned. I do have plenty of content. Now, merging out here on the interstate, the hybrid is totally powerful enough to get you up to speed, and more so without any issue. And setting the adaptive cruise control and lane tracing assist is very simple. One press of a button right here activates the adaptive cruise control, will turn on the lane keeping, and then activating the lane tracing will give you that lane centering technology. Now, I think this is a huge highlight of a truck like this because, as we know, the GM midsize truck, the Chevy Colorado and GMC Canyon, still do not have any sort of active lane centering, which is crazy for the 2026 model year to not have any of that. And as we know, Ford with the Ranger does have its Co-Pilot 360, which includes lane centering. And I think the lane tracing in this vehicle is one of the better for a midsize truck like this. I did take it on about an hour and a half round trip road trip, and it handled it very easily, and I had no issues with the driver assistance. But I will say at times it is a little bit naggy because there's a little bit more play in the steering wheel and the tire and just how the suspension in the vehicle is tuned, that you will kind of have to deliberately give it input to keep the system happy, as it might think your hands are off the steering wheel, despite this, obviously being on the steering wheel. Road noise at 62 miles an hour, which we're traveling, as you can hear, is, to be expected. It's not great. It's not bad. With the JBL Flex 10-speaker premium audio system, it does drown out most of the noise without issues, so I haven't had an issue with that. I will say, just like that of the Tacoma I tested last year and this one, specifically because this truck has the bulged hood, this hood has a lot of deflection or vibration in it at pretty much any speed. This is a widespread, known common issue with the Tacoma. I believe it is a aluminum hood, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. It's just because this hood is more directly in your line of sight every day, it kind of gets annoying looking at the hood moving around just like this at pretty much any speed every time you hit a bump. In terms of fuel economy over the past 2 weeks with it, I have averaged about 17 mpg in mixed driving. Now, if you've seen my Toyota 4Runner video with the TRD Pro, I don't want to spoil anything, but I actually beat the digital dashboard reading when measured at the pump, and I'm not sure that this truck would do the same, but if it would, it still would be less than the fuel economy I averaged in the 4Runner. Now, some of that's just due to the, there's probably some air turbulence that happens on the bed of the truck. It's just maybe a slightly larger, beefier vehicle, although the 4Runner had the roof rack on top, which likely didn't help fuel economy. Nonetheless, I have seen a slightly lower fuel economy figure here from the Tacoma than that of the 4Runner with the exact same trim and powertrain. Now, this truck is rated at, I believe, 22 in the city or 23 combined, if I'm not mistaken. And I think the fuel economy is substantially lower than that in the rear world for most people that would get behind the wheel and drive it like they normally would. Now, I understand the hybrid in this vehicle is not to necessarily improve fuel economy substantially over that of the standard 2.4 without the hybrid. It's more for a drivability, performance, acceleration. All of that is so much better in the hybrid than that of the regular gas engine that it would easily be my choice if I were to purchase the Tacoma. However, I don't necessarily agree with the fuel economy numbers that are put on the window sticker because of the fact that there's such a large difference between what you actually see in the real world and what you see rated on from the EPA. Of course, this one being the hybrid has the 2.4 kilowatt or 2400 watt onboard power via 220 volt outlets, one here in the second row of the truck, one located in the bed. In addition, it has USB-C charging and 12 volt power in the bed. So that's a huge advantage over the standard gas engine, as I keep mentioning in all my videos with not only Toyota Lexus products, but other manufacturers as well. If you have a hybrid system with a high voltage battery, please include meaningful 120 volt onboard power because it's extremely useful in a variety of situations. The one I can really relate to more recently was, of course, in my Volvo XC90 plug-in hybrid. I returned home to a house without power, and I had no way to plug my fridge freezer in this truck. I actually could have plugged it in, at least powered it for a period of time, got it cooled back down, and even if I didn't want to leave the truck running or idling or switching in the generator mode, I could have turned it off and then turned it back on for a period of time just to cool everything back down and keep the contents from having to be thrown away. I think the design language on the outside of the TRD Pro looks absolutely badass. I think it's super fitting, especially in this Mudbath exterior. I can't wait to see the Wave Maker exterior for 2026 TRD Pro. That looks awesome. And I really just am a fan of what Toyota is doing here with their vehicles and the enhancements that they made to the TRD Pro lineup in both the 4Runner and the Tacoma. And I guess in terms of which one I would pick if I were in the market for a near $70,000 off-road mid-size vehicle, whether it be truck or SUV, I'm going to tell you, I think I would go with the 4Runner. Not to say, or not to bash anything about the Tacoma, but it kind of is what it is. The bed is likely very useful in a handful of situations. If you need the bed space or unlimited height, whatever it might be, the Tacoma is probably the way you should lean. But for me, despite this being having the ISODynamic seats, which I think are arguably more comfortable for me, the 4Runner I think just makes sense on a daily basis for what my lifestyle would be. Slightly better fuel economy seems attractive. I like the rear seat space in the 4Runner. It's more usable than this one, especially again with these seats. The rear cargo area, despite it being roughly the same as the last generation or even marginally smaller because the high voltage battery is housed back there, I think that seems appealing. So all in all, I think the 4Runner would be my pick. However, do keep in mind, it does come in at the nearly a $4,000 to $5,000 price premium over that of the Tacoma, which I'm currently driving, which starts about $64,000. I believe the 4Runner TRD Pro starts about $67,500 to $68,000. So there is a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 price premium moving up to the 4Runner over the Tacoma, and despite it having largely the same amount of equipment and features inside the vehicle. So I think that is basically going to be it. I'd go with the 4Runner TRD Pro, but I don't think there's a wrong answer. It just depends on your lifestyle and what you really need the vehicle for. But this is a way better experience than the TRD Off-Road that I tested last year, just due to the hybrid powertrain, the suspension tuning in the TRD Off-Roads are arguably a little bit more stiff and unforgiving. I really do like the TRD Pro. It's a very good vehicle. It's just a little bit pricey in terms of its competition, especially when you start to look at Colorado ZR2, Ranger Raptor, which are in the low, mid, upper $50,000 price range, where this vehicle is commanding $66,000 as tested, which is at least $7,000, $8,000 more than a Ranger Raptor starts at, and $10,000 or more than a Colorado ZR2 comes in at. As long as you're willing to pay the price premium and likely have a little bit of a wait list to get this truck, it is certainly something special, and you aren't going to see too many of them out on the roadway. So with all that being said, I want to give a huge thanks to Toyota for sending this truck out for me to test and review. I'm one of the first people here in the Midwest to get hands-on and experience with it, so absolutely great experience. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on it down in the comment section below. Do you agree, disagree, want to add anything? Make sure you guys subscribe and stay tuned for my dedicated likes and dislikes, and check out the walk-around tour if you want to know a little bit more specifically about some of the features and options that are found on this one. And as usual, with all that being said, I appreciate continued support. I hope to see you guys in the next one.